Hello, 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 everybody. Wow. So tonight we're going to have a fantastic book. Whoever said, Lee, read Franklin Horton's books, gosh, I tell you what, you did me a big favor. I am really enjoying his books, and especially a series we'll be talking about tonight. What did I do with it? I just had it. There it is. Helen and I tore up my, we have a guest bedroom, and I'm in trouble because I've taken over two corners in the guest bedroom, one of them with cases of number 10 cans of food, and some coffee, but not much. The other corner is stacked to the ceiling with coffee, instant coffee, coffee beans, along with jars of Tang and a whole bunch of nutrient survival brain. I need the brain drinks, so I have a whole bunch of those in there too. Hello, Triple G. But so I tore that all up. I was looking for. I said, Helen, I need your help. I need a vessel because we're going to be pouring. We're going to take water, probably in a pitcher, out of our 350-gallon rain catchment system, and I want to put it through a pour-over coffee filter, the number 4 coffee filter, get rid of all the bird poop and the stuff that falls off the shingles and all that kinds of stuff, so I don't ruin it when I put it into my Simpure system. And then after that, catch it in something, and then we're going to put it into the Simpure system. That way we save the filters on the Simpure. And so I tore that room apart. My God, there's stuff all over the place. Looking for these. I have about 5 of these. So I was looking for them, and I tore the room up, and I have to put it back together tomorrow. Finally found these because they don't require temperature control, so I have them out in the garage with the stuff out in the garage that doesn't require temperature control. And finally found them. So Helen and I have come up with some solutions on how we're going to do this process, and I'm very happy with what we've got going on. But in the meantime, what a great guy. Mr. Horton, outstanding work in this series. Of course, I started off with Locker 9 series, and I think that's only 4 or 5 books. But in book 2 or 3 of the Locker 9 series, you get introduced to Mad Mick. And so I started reading the Mad Mick, and then was interviewed Mr. Horton here on the channel. And he said, well, the one that's really more realistic, more me, more of where I am in west side of the state of Virginia, not the state West Virginia, but West Virginia, right there, the Appalachian Trail. He said, this is more attuned to reality for me. So this is based off of my own, how I perceive my life would be in a post-apocalyptic world. So it's more realistic, he says, in his eyes. So I said, well, okay. So I started reading this book, and I tell you, just a phenomenal series. Just thank you to whoever introduced me to him. Thank you very much. Fantastic author. Really love him. Next month, we're going to be doing John Grammer. Now, John Grammer basically is also a big fan of Franklin Horton's. So, but anyhow, I was talking with Mr. Grammer on the phone, and he will be here the 25th, which is the same day as my surgery. I'm having throat surgery, so I hope I can talk that night. But anyhow, we will see. We've got Infiltrated by John Grammer, and that's going to be coming up 25th of April. So there we go. Let me see. Canadian Prepper says, holy poo-poo. Russia has declared holy war. Ambassador flees Poland. Nuclear missiles are moving. Let me see what it says. Come on, computer. I've got too many tabs open. It's going to take forever. So we'll just say, okay. Ambassador flees Poland. Nuclear missiles are on the move. Gold smashes. So we'll have to see what that means. Okay, back to this live. Golly. Okay, so yeah, I think the poop is going to hit the fan here very quickly in the very near future. So I may even move my Thrive Life order up a little bit just to help with that. So we've got Gray Man Prepping. Hello, Gil. Welcome. And Gil, I just put one out today. How will you when SHTF? So I would appreciate you watching that and giving me some feedback on that one, because I know that's an area of interest and expertise for you as well. Muskoka Oma, hello, welcome. Diana too. Cold War Prepper, who's that? Golly. Utah Mike, hello, welcome. Little Lone Prepper, Celtic Grandma, Triple G Farms, Holly Ivans, and I think I already said Utah Mike, but in case I didn't, Utah Mike. And then it looks like we've got that's about right, 7 people. So we've only got 7 people here, but what a great book. Let me tell you, I am super, super excited. So we've got 3 main characters, Jim, Gary, and Randi. And so they've all gotten home safely. Remember that there were 6 of them that started out. They started out as a group of mental health professionals from the county who were in that county working for the state, going to the state capitol for a convention or for a meeting or whatever. SHTF happens. Then they have to make their way back home. So basically across the state of Virginia from east to west. So they break up into 2 groups of 3. The other 3 have terrible encounters and none of them survive. These 3 do survive. They make it home. Or was it 4 and 2? I think it was 4 and 2. And one of the 4 here in this group, Randi, Jim, and Gary, ends up deceased, and then the 3 of them make it home. And so Randi, of course, is a nurse, a mental health nurse, and boy, I tell you what, she has a rough go, and she has to really find out some stuff and kind of come along. And so that's a dilemma that continues in this book. Is you have that Hippocratic oath. Not Hippocratic oath that says that you can't take a life, that you have to always try to preserve a life. And so that comes in as a problem here for Randi in this book, because she knows what she has to do in the situation because she's been through some really rough times, but that instinct, that nurturing medical nurse instinct takes over, and it gets them into trouble. So let's start off at the beginning. So one of the things that Mr. Horton points out, and this is a conversation that takes place between Randi and her daughter about page 6. And they're talking about they have to get used to the fact that they're going to have to construct and use outhouses. You got to get used to the fact that you're not going to have indoor plumbing that much anymore. Hello, Clarity Jane, welcome. So all the nice stuff that's associated with our nice, convenient potties that we have now. Turn the handle, it goes away, and most of the odor with it. And what odor doesn't? You turn on that little switch, and there's an exhaust fan, and the odor goes away. Well, my grandmother had an outdoor 2-hole outhouse, and let me tell you, that odor does not go away. And it's dark at nighttime, and all kinds of creatures of the night go there because you've got easy access through the top. And that's another part of the story that's going to be involved with Randi's brother Tommy when we get on later into the book, is going to take advantage of an outhouse situation. But so anyhow, you've got this situation going on where people are in the valley. Now, one of the things that Mr. Horton points out that I think is really, really critical that you've got to assess with your neighbors now is you've always got those neighbors who are friends and those neighbors who you wish would move away, or you wish you had enough money to move away yourself, one or the other, right? And so it just so happens that Randi's family is in a situation where there's a family down the street. Oh, my collar. I need to zip up a little bit here. We're believe it or not, this is Texas, and we still have to have long sleeve shirts almost at the 1st of April. Can you believe that? I mean, it was 50 degrees today. That's unheard of. Normally, we're getting closer to that 100-degree mark, But March, April, May are big tornado and hailstorm months here in Central Texas. Matter of fact, my Kia Sportage was totaled by a hailstorm 3 years ago this month. So it was something else. And I had a brand new engine, had less than 100 miles on it, had brand new tires, less than 1,000 miles on it, had a full tank of gas, and the car gets totaled. Golly, all that money down the tube. But anyhow, we're talking about Randi's family. So Randi goes away, and she and a couple members of her family go away. And while she's away, that family her brother sees the bad guy out poaching their stuff. And so since there's no rule of law, he dispatches the guy from the other family. Okay. So he dispatches him, goes back to his house, goes away to do some hunting. While he's away, that family decides to take revenge because they think it's the family, rightfully so. They think it's the family next doors or just down the road. And so there's this revenge thing that starts going on. So they come and they dispatch Randi's mother, father, and I believe one other character, a brother or a sister. But the mother had taken Randi's grandchildren and put them in a facility, a storage shed or something, and was there with them until she saw her husband being dispatched by the other family. And so she runs to help him, and in the process, she gets dispatched. So as a result of that, then that other family burns their house down. So everything they have is inside that house. And remember that Randi has been communicating with Jim and Gary via I believe it's probably a GMRS system that they got from the Appalachian Trail from a forest ranger park or office. And so they've got that communication that's in the house, and it gets burnt up. So almost everything they have, clothes, food, bang bangs, the stuff you put inside bang bangs, the freedom seeds, all those different things get burnt up by this family. Tommy comes back, Randi comes back with her two daughters, and they see what's happened. Both parents are in the yard. Randi starts looking for the children and finds the grandchildren. So they find the grandchildren. Of course, they're in a little bit of a trauma. Tommy comes back. And so they decide they need to bug out. And Randi says, well, I'm going to go to Jim's house. And so they still have a couple horses left. They set up the horses where they're going to ride off. And Tommy says, no, I'm going to I'm going to get my revenge against the people who got revenge against me. So then probably the first third of the book is strictly about this vengeance game that's going on between the family down the road and Tommy. And so one of the things he does is he thinks he used to work as in the union as kind of a strike breaker, or no, not a strike breaker, but a scab breaker. There we go. And so a lot of the tactics he used against the police and the scabs, he's going to start using against this other family. So he goes out and he collects a whole bunch of copperheads and diamondbacks, and then uses those to dispatch one of the members of the family. And then after that, he also creates some, for lack of a better term, a calhedron, which is basically you take a large spike and bend it, and then you take another large spike and bend it and then you sharpen the tips so that they're very sharp. They use these, they used to manufacture them to protect against cavalry attacks. They would also throw them out of castles to stop the soldiers, because when you step on it, regardless how it lands, there's going to be at least one spike sticking up, and people are going to step on it, or horses are going to step on it, and they become lame. So it's a defensive tool, but it's also illegal to have during normal times. So he manufactures a whole bunch of them, puts them on the porch. Then things happen, and one of the members comes out. He has a tripwire across the entrance to the porch. The person trips and lands face first into these calhedrons, and so that dispatches the second one. Then the remaining person from that family dispatches him, and interesting how that happens, and rather Indiana Jones-ish, if you get my drift. So anyhow, so now that's all taken care of. There's still one member of that opposing family left. So then Randi, her two daughters, and I know what it was. Randi was taking her daughters to go see if Randy's estranged husband was still okay, because he still is the father of those two daughters. And so they wanted to make sure that their dad was okay. And that's why they were gone away from the house. And so they're coming back. So they pack up everything on what's left on the horses. They take off to Jim's. And they go to Jim's, and then, there's things that happen there. Now, Charlotte, one of the daughters, of course, has lost her husband. That's what it was. Charlotte's husband was the other one that was taken care of. Was dispatched along with her father and her mother. So Charlotte's lost a father, a mother, and her husband. So she goes catatonic. Okay. And, no. Charlotte is one of the members of Jim's family who goes catatonic because of losing her husband. And so they ask Randi if she'll take care of her, because Randi's a mental health nurse. And so Randi uses tough love. Probably more physical and violent than most people would imagine, but it works. It does the trick. And so Charlotte comes out of it, and Charlotte later becomes a hero as a result of Randi bringing her out of that problem. So meantime, there's a parallel story where they finally intersect. And the parallel story is there's this calendar. There are two characters. I forget the main character's name, but he was basically the community or county civil defense planner, the FEMA guy, but for the county, not for the federal government. And so all these people at this rich golf course community hire him to come in and help set up security and help them survive everything. And hello, Teresa, welcome. Hello, Unknown Nose, welcome. Good to see you. Thank you. Some great comments on the live or on the shorts today. But so we've got this rich community, the unlimited amount of dollars, and while you got that unlimited amount of dollars, you got some shady characters. This one guy who is the FEMA type guy, the community planner for disasters and everything else, worthless guy actually, and he doesn't really know what he's doing, but he kind of works his way in and he becomes in charge of the community. He hires a roughshod by the name of Valentine. Valentine had a very poor upbringing and has violence tendencies that are going to be displayed throughout the book for the rest of the way. He eventually causes a premature separation between, what's the guy's name? Baxter. Between Baxter and the rich guys at the community center, or at the golf course community. And but anyhow, so they are just down. So the way I'm trying to picture this in my mind, imagine this valley, and so they've got the farm that Jim and Gary are at and Randi comes to is kind of somewhere down in the middle of it. You've got a bridge down at this end crossing over some body of water, and they blow that so that now that's kind of limiting access into the area. They've got this cattle farm down at the other end of the valley, and so they figure that that's going to be enough to keep bad people out. So what happens is a drunk and another guy take over the cattle farm because the people have been dispatched by somebody else, and so they take the cattle and they're selling it to the rich community. Well, the rich community, Baxter and Valentine, determined that, hey, why were you paying these guys, especially the alcoholic guy who he doesn't care about cash, he doesn't care about food, he doesn't care about anything, he just wants booze, right? So they say, why are we paying these guys? Why don't we just tail them, follow them back, and then we can just take what we want? So they follow them back, dispatch the couple, and they're taking over the cattle ranch. Baxter decides this would be a good bug out place. So he takes everything that the rich guys have and he's moving it to this cattle place. And I'm not going to tell you how that ends because I want you to buy the book and support Mr. Horton and read it because it is a phenomenal book. So anyhow, so there's a fight. We don't know how it happens. We don't know who all's involved, but some of the guys Baxter leaves behind at the cattle ranch get shot up by somebody. Well, it just so happens that Randi, Gary, Jim, and a couple others hear all the shooting. They go down to check it out. When they go down to check it out, there's wounded guys laying there. This is when Randi does her nurse thing. And so she takes the wounded guy back to their secure area. And she's trying to save a life, but, really messed up because of OPSEC. And his buddy's with him. Now, the buddy's trying to keep, pressure on the wound to keep it from bleeding. But he's not injured, whereas the other guy is injured. And if you let go of the direct pressure, then he's going to die. And it's messed up. So anyhow, Valentine is gone. And Valentine comes back. He sees that all these guys have been shot. And so he's out looking for who did it. So he's going up and down the valley, looking for the lost Hummer and the lost guys. And so that turns into basically the climax of the book is Valentine taking on Jim, Gary, Randi, and that whole crowd. And Charlotte saves the day. But anyhow, Valentine kind of blows it, and so he has some tannerite that he's gotten. He's back at the golf course, and so he's got the tannerite out there. He tells all these people who are coming looking for food, and they're assuming that, hey, all these rich people probably have all kinds of food, so they're coming begging for the food. Valentine doesn't like them begging at the front gate, so he takes some tannerite, puts it inside an ice chest, puts it out there as if it's a gift of food for all the people who are starving. They get close to the ice chest, and he puts one round through the tannerite, and there goes all the people who are asking for food. Well, the community doesn't like that, so Valentine kind of gets ostracized. But then at the same time, the leading council says, wait a minute, we're missing a couple 40-foot or 54-foot semi-trailers full of food, a semi-trailer full of fuel. Where's all this stuff? So they start, getting Baxter. Baxter says, I've got it in a safe place. So he takes them to the safe place, right? Well, more intrigue happens there. So great book. So let's get back to the lessons that were learned. So anyhow, the rich people, okay, how are the poor people identifying the fact that the rich people probably have a lot of food and a lot of gas, other than the fact they have a whole bunch of 54-foot semi-trailers full of this stuff, and that is they have violated OPSEC. So Baxter went and got those tower lights. So a tower light is basically a 5 kW generator on a 2-wheel trailer, and they're usually painted yellow, and you'll see them a lot for highway construction. And it's got this light that kind of, you prop it up, and then you crank it up, and it goes up to a high altitude. So you've got this 5 kW generator, that's a lot of noise in the first place. And then it goes up, and then you got these spotlights that are coming down on the community. Well, Baxter figures that it'd be good to see anybody approaching the outskirts or the fence of the community, and that's a good way to defend. In reality, those lights are telling everybody within 20 miles, hey, something's going on over here. We need to go check it out. So be careful. Make sure you have good operational security. Make sure you have good light security. Make sure you have good sound security, because the sound of the generators are attracting people, and that will go even further than the light will. The light is attracting people. So you're making yourself a target when you put something, especially outdoor lights, in a situation where other people don't have electricity, don't have fuel, don't have food, don't have anything. You don't want to advertise that you are the people who have it. Okay. Okay, another one. Anthony is the guy that gets shot that I told you about, that Randi does. So one of the things that Randi's doing is she's running around all these people who are shot, and she's performing basic triage. Okay, So triage and in CERT, we learn there are 5 categories of triage when we go through and identify people. And so one of those things, that Randi's teaching here, that Mr. Horton is teaching in the book, is that level 4 of triage. So as a matter of fact, one of the things they taught us was in CERT was, let's say you come across a bus accident and you run up on the bus, and the very first thing you see is the driver has an arterial wound that you can put a tourniquet on and probably stop that. But there's also 34 other passengers in the bus. So what do? Do you put a tourniquet on the driver? And because once you put a tourniquet on, you have to stay with that person you put the tourniquet on. So maybe there's some category 3 people who are back in the back of the bus that you could save with even less first aid. Something, you slap something, a bandage on it, whatever, Celox or anything like that, you can save 3 or 4 lives, but instead you're focusing on putting a tourniquet on 1 life. You may be forfeiting 3 or 4 or 5, even up to 30 other lives. So you bypass the guy who needs the tourniquet in order to check out the other people to see if they need help. Then if nobody needs help, if they're all level 1s or 2s, and you take care of the level 3s, slap a bandage on, stop the bleeding, you come back. If that person's still alive now, that level 4, you can put the tourniquet on them, okay? And then level 5, of course, is already deceased. Well, in a post-apocalyptic world, and Mr. Horton does a very good job of describing something that I am a strong advocate of. If you don't have a surgeon, remember when you put a tourniquet on somebody, if you don't have a surgeon and an emergency room available to remove the tourniquet, you can never take the tourniquet off, which means that gangrene is going to set in. So sometimes, as Randi talks about here in the books, it's best for those level 4s, the people who won't survive without surgery or without an emergency room or without a tourniquet, just to let them go. And that becomes even more pronounced as we get, the one guy is actually stopping with direct pressure and arterial bleed. And Randi tells him, she says, look, buddy, you're just making him suffer longer because that blood, there's internal damage as well. And that blood is seeping out. You're slowing the process and he's just going to suffer longer. The humane thing to do is to release the pressure, let it all go out, and let him expire as quickly as possible and as painlessly as possible. That's one of those tough decisions we're going to have to make in a post-apocalyptic world. What do we do with the level 4s in a triage situation? And they don't refer to it as level 4 here. I'm using the CERT terminology that we were trained with. What do you do? So the level 1s don't need any help. Level 2 or what we call the walking wounded, they can basically either take care of themselves or take care of another person, and they can walk to an aid station or whatever. Level 3 are people that are probably not ambulatory, but you can stabilize them with first aid where they are, and then later you can extricate them with a gurney stretcher, with a stretcher, a fuel stretcher. And then level 4, of course, are those that are critical, that will expire without immediate surgical aid. You're in the golden hour for those. So those are the ones you put the tourniquet on, but you're going to get them to an emergency room, usually by medevac, helicopter or something like that, because they need to get to a trauma center quickly or else they're going to expire anyway. Then level 5 is already deceased. So, that's the decisions that we're going to have to make. And I think Mr. Horton does a fantastic job of telling us, those things are going to happen and you're going to have to make those tough calls. And there's not going to be the medical facilities or the trained people available to assist you with either the surgical stuff or with the removal of a tourniquet. So tough calls. The other thing that I think that he brings out, and we call them range fire cards. Okay, so you basically, every sniper, every 11 Bravo infantryman has, basically they're going to have a right in the rain tablet. Okay, and so they are going to take range out to certain identified items. If you watch On Tuesday nights, right before mine, uh, what's his name? Tactical Rifleman, Carl, is ex Special Forces, and he talks quite extensively. And A American talks about it in his books as well. But Carl carries a notebook, and so he will take things like measure the distance from the road to the top of a tire on a certain brand of car, so that he knows what that is, so that at range he can do his triangulation for his range card. Because if it's this tall at normally, but it appears to be this tall, then using the parallax and trigonometry, you can determine it. Your distance from here to here, because of this angle and this angle, is X distance. Then, so that's the reason he keeps a card with all this information about certain heights. What is it from the ground to the roof of let's say a Cadillac Escalade, and so you can use those measurements then and trigonometry to determine actual distance. So he comes up with range cards. And so one of the things they do here is they talk about using range cards. So identifying targets, or at least ranges, and maybe even putting a small flag or an identifier or something out there to say 100, 200, and 500 yards, so that that you have to make adjustments on your optics with your pew-pews, so that you can aim a little bit higher and know exactly how much higher you have to aim at those distances. Now, in addition to that, he doesn't mention it in here, but in addition to that, I would probably put some sort of a flag, and that can be something as simple as a piece of plastic tape. What are they called? But it's not sticky tape. It's just marker tape, and if you put that at your range flag, then that gives you an idea as to wind direction and speed, because we've got the elevation taken care of with the range. But now you need to know, is there a crosswind coming? And if so, do I need to adjust my windage, either right or left, over that distance to ensure that my bullet, as it gets affected by the wind, makes its true course to where I want it to go? So you've got both elevation and windage that have to be taken into account. They talk exclusively about elevation in the book, which is a fantastic idea, and I strongly recommend everybody here do that. Now, you can also, one of the things that's kind of mentioned, they have laser rangefinders in the book, or optical rangefinders, so it basically sends out a light, comes back, and it tells you the true distance. But if somebody has special optics, they can always see that light. So they're going to assume that because the other guys, the bad guys, have military-grade pew-pews, that they might have military-grade night vision. So if that's the case, you don't want to use a laser rangefinder at night. So one of the things you might want to think of is just go to a golf course, or go to a sporting goods store, and they basically have golf rangefinders. So what it is you can basically take a look at something, and it's going to do all that trigonometric functioning for you. So you can look through this little telescope, turn it, and it'll give you the range to wherever it is that you're trying to target. And now then you can also do it with a single lens SLR, single lens reflex camera. A lot of the older ones and some of the newer ones, like the Canon AE1 I had a Nikon FTB. But basically what you're doing is you've got two different things, and this is the same thing you see on the top of tanks up until the invention of the laser. But you've got coincidence range finding. So it's going to, you know the distance from this point to this point. And so you're going to now take those two things, you're going to turn them, and so that one of them is going to show the bottom half of whatever it is you're looking at. The other one's going to show the top half. You want them to line up so that now you have one solid figure. When that happens, it does all the mechanics of the, the tangents, the angles of these two beams, and then that's going to, it knows, and this base is a known distance. So now it does the mathematics for you, and it tells you the distance to the target. Okay, so that's another way you can do that, is with maybe an SLR, an older SLR camera. So that's pretty much it. I don't want to give away the end of the book. I want you to read the book. It's a phenomenal book. I can't wait for volume 5, book 5, and we'll probably do book 5 for the month of May. For the month of April, we're doing Infiltrated. but gosh, lots of good information in Mr. Horton's books, and character development is superior. Conflict, personal conflict. I'm a big proponent of the fact that we are going to have all kinds of mental issues in a post-apocalyptic world. When I look at the mental issues we had after 9/11, when I look at the mental issues that were caused post, the last election, when I take a look at, some of the issues that people are having with Baltimore and the Francis Scott Key Bridge, some people are going crazy over that. During the lockdown, when we had the disease, there was a dramatic increase in mental issues. By the way, there is a new mental health um, emergency number, and it's 988. So if you have an emergency and you think it's mental health related and you need somebody, a mental health first aid certified police officer to respond, so they won't respond as a normal, gun drawn or anything like that. They're going to respond as a mental health officer, but they'll still have a sidearm. Call 988 instead of 911. Okay. So let me catch up with all the comments because you guys got some fantastic comments. Let me see. Let me catch up here. Let me see. So I keep a couple of plastic totes with clothes, shoes, and dry food in an outbuilding. Yeah, in case the house gets burnt down. Absolutely. Great idea, Little Lone Prepper. Fantastic idea. Wanted to do that for a while, but I don't have a suitable spot. So I have 4 foot lockers on the back porch and, with padlocks on them. And the thing is, I special ordered the padlocks. I have a total of 8 foot lockers, and I special ordered the padlocks so that they're all to the same key. So one key fits all 8 padlocks on all 8 of the. Now, if somebody gets that key, I'm SOL. But if they get the one key, they would get 8 keys. So the way I look at it is, that's the same thing. So I've got 8 foot lockers, 4 of them in the back porch, 4 of them in the garage, and they all have the same padlock on them, or same keyed padlock. Let me see. Holly Ivans agrees that we have to think ahead. Probably not the best spot because it's not temperature control, but it's the only spot I have. You know what? I agree. Like I said, I have to be very judicious in my stuff. There are things, food, then I have some heaters. Just add water to the heater and it will heat up. And I left a package out in the garage and it kind of blew up. Well, it expanded beyond. I had a number 10 can. I don't know how I left it out there, but I left a number 10 can of cake mix from Emergency Essentials out in the garage. And the heat, along with the yeast inside the can, blew it up. I mean, there was, cake mix all over the garage. That was not a fun experience at all. So yeah, don't anything that's going to be exposed to heat that's going to ruin. That's going to be foodstuffs and a lot of other stuff. You want to try to keep it temperature controlled. Now, here's a reality. Remember that once SHTF happens, we're probably not going to have that much temperature control. Okay, because there won't be electricity. Chances are there won't be electricity. So you'll be without air conditioning and without heating. So those conditions that are out in the garage now are going to be inside your home. But, we want to preserve what you have as long as possible until we're forced into that type of a situation so that we can prolong the lifespan of those things as long as possible. And Theoxorus has joined us. A good question, Celtic Grandma. Fantastic question. So, and as I was reading it, I wondered what I'm going to do here. Probably going to be a mass grave. Here, where I am, if I trying to get my grapes into the ground, trying to get my blueberries and blackberries into the ground, there is probably 6 inches of topsoil, and then we get into basically limestone. So, this is not what you would consider the most fertile land here in Texas, which is why we grow trees to a maximum, maximum of 6 feet tall. No, I'm just kidding. But we have an awful lot of limestone base underneath, about 6 inches of topsoil. So it's going to be difficult to dig a grave. So I figure once we start digging, we're just going to keep on digging. It probably won't be 6 feet deep. It may only be 4 feet deep. It may be that what we have to do is find a natural hole, and so let's say on the side of a hill or something like that, and then start place the person down at the bottom of that, and then start cascading some of the stuff above on top of it. I don't know. That's a very tough question. We also may have to consider trying to do what we can with cremation. That may be another solution. I don't know. Remember that if you watched, what was the movie? Troy. In Troy, I think it was, was it Achilles? Achilles and Alexander are out, and people who are severely wounded, they ended up basically finishing it off for them humanely, and then they had these humongous funeral pyres. And so that may be another solution, is that we may have to just resort back to cremation. But if you have like a backhoe or something that I would say, if you can dig the holes and then just leave the dirt to the side, then you can cover them. It's a lot easier to cover them up manually than it is to dig them manually. So if you can get some sort of a backhoe or something like that and get those dug, then all you have to do is push the dirt back on the inside. I have a feeling that we'll probably have more than one person per hole in that eventuality as well. So, and I mean, reading it in the book, when they were trying to take care of the victims, one of the other things I thought was, was it this book or was it A American's book, where they had a person carve an intricate sign to put over the grave, who it was and date of birth and and I thought, how could we do that in this type of a scenario like Mr. Horton's talking about? And I was thinking, maybe the way we handle that is handwritten notes inside a glass jar, and then we put the notes inside the glass jar and seal it so that they aren't as susceptible to, or some sort of a container that's airproof, waterproof, and all that kinds of stuff, so that we can identify who the people are inside. So maybe name, date of birth, date that they and where they were born, and cause of them being returned to the earth, and the date that they were returned, or the date that caused them to return. All that kind of information inside a jar, and then that jar or container, or even one of these, and if you did it, then if you rolled it right, you could have it so that everybody could read it on the outside, so that you could read it, but it caused me to do a lot of thinking after reading that in the book. So I don't know. What do y'all think? Let's get some discussion about that. Survey ribbon. Thank you, Gil. I knew somebody out there was smarter than I was. Yes, caching supplies anywhere is people are going to dig it up. I guarantee you, unless it's on your own property that you have control over, it's going to be found. I don't recommend it. Let me see. Gil, my place doesn't need any drop adjustments. Just survey tape would help adjust for the frequent high winds. So just windage is all you're concerned about. So yeah. So and Gil's talking about mechanical rangefinders. Yeah, like the ones we use at the golf course. Absolutely, or the ones you use with your cameras. So that's great. Let me see. So Holly's going to say goodnight. Take care, Holly. I'm so happy you were here for the time you were. Oh, we go. Speaking of, so Triple G is going to talk about, speaking of mental issues, be aware that 90% of our generic medications come from China and India. I have heard I have heard a lot of channels, and probably Angry Truth is one of the biggest proponents that if you have all 3 doses of that, that there were some things put in the 3rd dose. And I don't know, that's what he says. I don't know. But he's also a big anti-person. And so, he didn't get any of them. So how much of that, I'm kind of, I don't know what to believe. I don't know. Does anybody know what to believe anymore? Yeah. So the meds, the issue is a concerning issue. And so, yeah, it's terrible. The other thing is we used to have Abbott Labs here in Austin, used to make saline, D5W, and so they had 2% and 4% saline, D5W, and Ringer's lactate. They used to manufacture here in Austin. They shut down that manufacturing facility. And the vast majority of our normal saline, 4% saline, D5W, Ringer's lactate are now manufactured overseas. There is very little manufactured here in the US. So every time you get an IV, you're also getting something that's made from either India or China. So that's another one of those that's along those same lines. So yeah, and people who are on medications now and might not be able to get those, that's going to be a serious concern. That's why in that book we read about Grid Down, the Hollerman presentation to Congress, he estimates that 90% of the population of the US will be expired within 1 year after the Grid Down, because they either, one of 2 things, they either require medications they won't be able to receive, which are either mind numbing or mind adjusting, or are essential for bodily functions, heart medication, lungs, whatever. I'm going to be in a world of hurt without these, so I try to not take as much as I probably should. You heard me wheezing the other night, so I can save some of those and have a little bit longer duration of those. But so not having medications. And the other one is how many people are dependent upon electrical appliances to keep to stay alive, and that could be kidney dialysis machines. It could be CPAP machines. I sleep with an oxygen concentrator. So, how much of those types of things are going to be there? We have a type 1 brittle diabetic in our family that without insulin it's not going to be nice. And so we try to keep a 3-month supply of insulin. I've also made very good friends with our local pharmacist, and there are some over-the-counter insulins available that we can get, and along with the syringes and everything else. So, we can probably prolong that 6 months to a year, but that's going to be the maximum. I'll tell you, the book that scared me was William Forstchen's first book, 1 Second After, where his daughter dies because they did not have access to insulin. And so, that's a very big concern. So I'm going to encourage you, if you have medications that are life-sustaining for you, make sure you have an adequate supply of those. If you are dependent upon electrically operated life-saving equipment, make sure you have a plan on how you're going to provide the power for those after SHTF. Those are going to be 2 of the main things that you're going to have to be concerned about. So does Jace have a Jace? Yes. So I have both Jace Case and Contingency Medical. Both of them are superior companies. Strongly recommend them. There is a discount code and a link for both. And they're both the same thing. Now, what I do is when I go in for my annual physicals with my physician, I always take them in with me and have him go through my medications on an annual basis to make sure that none of them have expired. Now, and one of the ones that they give, which is amoxicillin, no, I'm sorry, azithromycin. Azithromycin, I'm allergic to. So they had to substitute doxycycline. So I have a double dose, a double prescription for doxycycline in lieu of azithromycin, commonly called the Z-Pak. So they will handle that. And if you have any allergies or anything else, they will. Let me tell you, both companies are fantastic. Jace was the first one I got involved with. So I have a Jace case for me and a Jace case for Helen. I was trying to talk my other family members into getting one, but they aren't willing to spend the money. But when my mother was alive, I was trying to convince her to get a shotgun because they didn't have any weapons in the house. And I said, Mom, you at least get a shotgun, get something. You need something in the house to defend yourself. And I was taking stuff over and giving it to her, as far as long-term freeze-dried food and stuff like that. And my sister was kind enough that when my mom passed away and we divided up the property, she returned all the stuff that I had given my mom for prepping. So didn't want to get it back that way, but I got it back. So oh wow, that's a great idea. Yes, great idea. And then you could just do a map distancing. Great idea. Thank you for sharing that, Muskoka. See, that's what you guys are. You're creative. You find solutions to problems that are fantastic and don't cost people too much money. So Unknown Nose is disabled, and his personal care physician asked me at every visit about my mental health. I finally told him I don't have any mental health problems. $20 million won't fix. He said, me too. Laughed and they're asking it. So the other question they ask, especially if you're a senior, is do you feel safe at home? And I always answer, not under this administration. But thank God my physician is of the same opinion that I am. So he takes it for the way I intend it. Talking about cash supplies again. So let's take a look here. Most SSRI, SSNI meds, such as Zoloft, were not studied for long-term use and really were meant for 6 months or less. So we're talking about, I believe those are primarily mental health medications. I'm not that familiar with those. I think, isn't Zoloft one they use for smoking cessation? No, Wellbutrin. Wellbutrin is the one they use for smoking cessation. But it's also a anxiety treatment, I believe, if somebody looked that up. Maybe dehydrated or freeze-dried foods would last longer in extreme temperatures. I do know that we think that MREs last about 3 years in extreme temperatures, and so we wouldn't they have to be re-examined every third year if they haven't been stored in controlled conditions. Okay, so I'm going to assume that probably 3 years would be the max under extreme temperatures. Isn't that the truth? All animals, especially bears. Bears can smell stuff through plastic, through metal, through glass. I don't know how they do it, but bears can find food. If you have a lot of rocks around your house, maybe you could do like some Native Americans and cover them with rocks. That's what they did primarily here in Central Texas, and especially out in West Texas, New Mexico, Arizona. Yes, they would create these mounds, let's call it, of rocks. Yes, that's absolutely true. And experts that loses 80% of their caches aren't really experts. I've lost 0% of mine. Amen, Gil. Let me see. My dry preps are in buckets and my mom's enclosed porch. That's good. Good thing because you can't gather replacement gear from the trees. I believe farmers can use wood chips to basically disintegrate even larger animals. Yes. So, and having some, that's another thing. And what was it? 13 Culpeper Lane or whatever. What was that movie that John, what was his name? He was with, I forget her name now too. Anyhow, he had a prepper deal. He had an underground shelter, and he had a big barrel of lye. And so when somebody died, he just threw them into the barrel of lye. So same thing, lime or lye can also help with what do we want to call it? Decomposing, rapid decomposing. Excuse me, I'm coming back down with something, and Helen just got over it, and I'm coming down with it. Yeah, there we go, Diana. Very next comment. Yes, composting. So we can do it with composting, and we can probably do that with humans as well. We would probably, in today's society, would say it's probably disrespectful. I think that in a post-apocalyptic world, it's going to be respectful because you're preserving the body and keeping it away from scavenging animals. Now, in the book, there are a couple instances where they just say, let the animals have them. So, that's going to be another thing as well. Let me see. I was thinking wood chips. So high blood pressure meds, yes, I do the same thing. So I take Lutensin. So Fioxera says, I don't plan on digging 9 graves before my own. Some soil situation as Lee, not much of it, not many trees for cremation either. So strangers will probably get drug off to be coyote food. And that's what happens in the book. Absolutely. And I think, there's a lot of things. And I think one of the things that these authors really do a good job with is, our mindset is going to change drastically from what it is today. Just our concept of justice is going to change. Our catechism right now teaches that we are opposed to the death penalty because we have the ability to lock somebody away and keep them away, not be a danger to society by locking them up for life. So we can incarcerate them and keep them and protect society, let's say, under a good administration. We can keep those people away from the rest of society so they're no longer a threat. So if they're no longer a threat to society, do we really have to execute them? So maybe what we should do is respect God's creations. Now, the minute that there's no longer the ability to incarcerate them and keep them away from society, the rules change, okay? And I think most of these authors do a very good job of explaining how those rules are going to change. So, some of the things that we probably would have said, 3 years in jail are not going to be 3 years in jail. It's going to be another solution, in a post-apocalyptic world. So those are some of those things I think, and dealing with those things mentally, if you're one of the people that has to enforce it, dealing with that rapid change of pre-apocalyptic, post-apocalyptic handling of enforcement of law, social norms, everything else, that's going to be a difficult thing for most people to adapt to emotionally, psychologically, mentally. Okay, great, man. And we will send everybody over there afterwards. Do me a favor, come back and give us a link so that we can just send them straight over the minute we end this one. Let's see where we are because we want to. Hello, KP Heathen, welcome. We want to get this covered here so we can get over to Gil's live stream. He and I support each other, and I think that's a great thing. Cloverfield, 13 Cloverfield Lane. There we go. Thank you, Faxers. John Goodman was his name, I believe. Fantastic movie. Yeah, so what we consider ethics, morality, and I will tell you, in a post-apocalyptic world, it's going to be, survival, and our natural instincts are going to come in, and this is where the fight or flight instinct is going to trigger in. Remember, the hypothalamus in your brain has that instinct of either fight or run, and so you're going to realize, and the hypothalamus is going to kind of make instantaneous judgments of, if I run, will I survive? If I fight, will I survive? I need to do something to ensure that I have the upper hand and win this fight. So, I think we're going to be back to our 20th century mentality, back to the 19th century and maybe even further back than that. But our society, our mindset, our morals, our ethics, our judgment are going to change dramatically in a post-apocalyptic world. So thank you, Triple G. I greatly appreciate that. So here's the link for us to go to after we finish ours this evening. So phenomenal book. Franklin Horton is a superior writer. I give him 5 thumbs up. I would give him 5 stars, whatever. Just great books, great character development, great storylines. It keeps you turning the pages. You don't want to turn them. You don't want to put it down. There's always twists too that you never really expect, and then all of a sudden, bang! It's right there in your face, and you got to deal with it. And so dealing with the unknown is quite good in Franklin's books as well. You don't get too suit or stable or set on one condition being there, because as soon as you get comfortable in one condition, he's going to change the conditions, and life will change. So just great. Okay, Book of Numbers, chapter 6, verses 24, 25, 26. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and give you peace. Don't forget, for the month of April 25th, we're doing Infiltrated by John Grammer, and we'll probably do book 5 of Franklin Horton's series for May. I'll see where we are. It depends on whether or not Steve Smith gets his book 7 of the Stonemont series out by then. I'll have to see, but that was the first series that we started out with, was the Stonemont series. And so Steve, in his video this morning, Integrated Preparedness, he said book 7 is due out next month. So we'll see. But for right now, let's say that the only thing we know for sure is next month is going to be Infiltrated by John Grammer. And get this series. I'm going to recommend all 3 series of Franklin Horton's that I've read so far. The Locker 9 series is phenomenal. The Mad Mick is just a fun prepper book with lots of great learning in it. And then, of course, this one, not that. It's the Borrowed World series is just superior, 5 stars. So remember that we're all in this together so we can get out the other side together. Please be kind, polite, and respectful to each other. Develop those friendships, develop the trust, establish your tribe, establish your mag, get together with other people, because lone wolves will not survive what we've got coming. And I have a feeling it's coming soon. I don't say that to scare you. I say that to prepare you, because be aware, get your mind right, get your spirit right, get your prepping right. I mean, we've got to bring all this stuff together, because the more prepared you are, the better you will be mentally capable of handling whatever's thrown at you. That's one of the things we do in the Army, is we train for the worst, so that we can be autonomically responsive to what happens around us, and reflexes kick in, and that way we don't panic. Okay. And so prepare for that, and just stay safe. Okay. Please be kind, polite, and respectful to each other. Develop your mag, because remember, the only way you can get out of this is when we do it together. Switch over to Gills. Here's the link, and see you all there. Take care, everybody. See you next Monday. Bye-bye.